The crimson giant loomed ominously in the violet sky of Lorath, casting an eerie glow across the once vibrant plains. Elder Malk stared through the observatory dome, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a gesture of deep resignation among the Loran people. For generations, they had watched their star swell and destabilize, transforming from life-giver to harbinger of extinction. "The calculations remain unchanged," said Tella, the chief astronomer, her voice carrying the melodic trilling that characterized Loran's speech. 5 planetary cycles until total habitability collapse. Malk's tendrils drooped along his slender frame. "And the evacuation ships?" "Material shortage remains critical. We can save perhaps 1/8 of our population." Tella's outer eyes closed, a sign of mourning. The council chamber fell silent save for the constant hum of cooling systems working at maximum capacity to counter the increasing heat. Around the circular table sat the 12 remaining leaders of the Loran civilization, a species that had achieved interplanetary travel but lacked the technology for escape to another star system. "Then we must proceed with the message," Malk finally declared. Councillor Pren's skin flushed dark blue in objection. "A waste of resources. No one will hear it. No one will come." "What alternative remains?" asked Malk. "We have calculated every possibility." The debate lasted hours, but ended as all recent council sessions had, with the acknowledgement that no better options existed. 3 decades earlier, the Lorans had dispatched automated probes toward neighboring star systems. But the technology was primitive by necessity. Limited resources meant limited capabilities. The message would be different. Using their planet's largest transmitter array, they would send a desperate plea for help into the cosmos, aimed at the nearest 200 star systems. The power requirements were enormous, depleting energy reserves they could ill afford to spare. 2 days later, Elder Malk stood beside Director Vin at the Planetary Broadcast Center. The air smelled of ozone and desperation. "Translation modules programmed with basic mathematical sequences first," Vin explained, "followed by simplified biochemical formulas describing our physiology. Then the plea itself." Malk nodded. "Proceed." The massive transmitter hummed to life, drawing power from stations across the planet. The light fixtures dimmed throughout the facility as energy was diverted to the broadcast. The message, their civilization's final hope, streamed outward at light speed. Somewhere among those distant stars, would anyone hear? Would anyone understand? Would anyone care enough to help beings they had never met? Malk didn't live to see an answer. Nor did his successor or the next 3 elders who followed. The message traveled silently through the darkness of space for decades. At Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station in New Zealand, Dr. Amara Reed was 3 hours past the end of her shift when the anomaly appeared. The pattern recognition software flagged a signal from the HD 117618 system, approximately 124 light-years distant. "Probably another pulsar," muttered her colleague, Dr. Marcus Webb, reaching for the dismissal key. "Wait," Amara said, studying the repeating pattern. "This isn't natural. There's a mathematical progression here." Hours turned into days as the world's leading scientists analyzed the transmission. When the translation team finally decoded the biochemical sequences and the message that followed, the room fell silent. "My God," whispered Dr. Wei, the xenolinguistics expert. "It's a distress call. They're dying." Humanity had just received its first confirmed communication from an alien civilization, and it was a plea for help that had been traveling for over a century. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session 48 hours after the translation was confirmed. Representatives from every nation sat in tense silence as Dr. Amara Reed presented the findings. "The message originates from a planet orbiting HD 117618, which the senders call Lorath," she explained, projecting stellar charts onto the chamber's main screen. "Their star has entered an early red giant phase, causing rapid heating of their planet. Based on the message timestamp and accounting for light speed delay, their situation is critical. They may already be extinct." General Thomas Hayes of the Global Space Coalition leaned forward. "You're suggesting we mount a rescue mission to aliens we've never met, 124 light-years away? With what technology, exactly?" The Alcubierre Inoue, Drive has achieved 0.25C in tests, replied Dr. Reed. With acceleration improvements, we could potentially reach their system in under 300 years. Diplomatic representative Jonah Mbeki from the African Union stood up. Even if we could reach them, which is highly questionable, why should we expend such resources? Earth faces its own environmental challenges. The chamber erupted in overlapping arguments. Some nations viewed the alien message as a security threat, others as a hoax, still others as a moral imperative to respond. For weeks, the debate raged across government chambers and public forums worldwide. Professor Emil Novak, the renowned propulsion theorist, surprised the scientific community by proposing a radical solution during a crucial United Nations follow-up meeting. "We've been approaching this wrong," he stated firmly. "The question isn't whether we should help, but how. My team has been refining the modified Alcubierre geometry. With sufficient energy concentration, we could potentially achieve transit velocities approaching light speed." The room filled with skeptical murmurs. "That's physically impossible," challenged Dr. Wei. "Theoretically possible but practically unachievable," Novak corrected. "Until now." He displayed complex equations and simulation results. "By creating overlapping warp fields and cycling the energy input, we can sustain higher velocities without violating causality. The journey would take approximately 150 years. Still an intergenerational mission, but feasible." The debate shifted from whether to respond to how. Public sentiment increasingly favored action, driven by what journalists called the cosmic responsibility doctrine. If humanity had the capability to help, did it not have the moral obligation to try? Private sector innovators joined the conversation. Aerospace magnate Daniel Reeves pledged resources from his company, Frontier Dynamics. "If we turn our backs on this call for help," he told reporters, "what does that say about us as a species?" Religious leaders found rare common ground, with the International Faith Coalition issuing a joint statement supporting the mission as an opportunity to demonstrate cosmic compassion. 6 months after receiving the message, a historic vote took place. The United Nations General Assembly approved Resolution 7291. Authorization for Interstellar Humanitarian Response. 137 nations pledged resources toward humanity's first interstellar rescue mission. Project Horizon was born, with an aggressive 15-year development timeline for ship construction and a mission plan spanning generations. The resolution included a response transmission to the Lorans, though no one knew if any of them remained alive to receive it. As Dr. Reed left the UN building that evening, a reporter asked whether she believed they would succeed. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "But I do know this. When faced with a cry for help from strangers across the stars, humanity chose to answer. That alone makes me proud of our species." The next morning, engineers worldwide began designing the most ambitious vessel in human history, not for conquest or exploration, but for rescue. The Horizon launched on a clear August morning in 2089, 15 years after Project Horizon's approval, and over 20 years since humanity first received the Loran distress call. The massive generation ship represented the culmination of Earth's combined scientific and industrial might, a vessel designed to sustain 500 crew members and their descendants over a journey expected to last 146 years. Commander Elena Diaz stood on the observation deck as Earth diminished to a pale blue dot behind them. Her great-grandchildren would be the ones to complete this mission, assuming everything went according to plan. "Strange to think we'll never see Earth again," said Navigation Officer Raj Patel, joining her at the viewport. "Strange to think we're answering a call that's now nearly 150 years old," Elena replied. "They may all be dead by the time we arrive." "Yet we go anyway," Raj said. "Yet we go anyway," she echoed. The first year passed in constant adjustment as the crew acclimated to life aboard the Horizon. The ship's 3 massive habitation rings rotated to provide artificial gravity, while the central spine housed the revolutionary propulsion system. As they cleared the solar system, the Alcubierre Inoue drive gradually accelerated them to velocities approaching 85% of light speed, far beyond what the technology's creators had initially thought possible. Education Director Thomas Chen established the Continuity Program, designed to train subsequent generations for their roles upon arrival. "Our great-grandchildren will be the ones to make first contact," he reminded the crew during his orientation sessions. Everything we do now is preparation for that moment. Meanwhile, in hydroponics, Dr. Layla Okafor oversaw the cultivation of both Earth crops and experimental alien-compatible foods based on the biochemical data from the Loran message. "We don't know if they'll need our help with food supplies," she explained to her team, "but we should be prepared to offer it." 27 years into the journey, the first generation of spaceborne humans reached adulthood. They had never known Earth except through recordings and the stories of their elders. To them, the horizon was home, and the mission was their inheritance. Mika Diaz, granddaughter of the original commander, stood in the ship's historical archive, studying the translated Loran message that had launched this extraordinary journey. 2. You ever wonder if we're chasing ghosts? Asked her friend Elian Reeves, descendant of the aerospace magnate who had helped fund the mission. Sometimes, Micah admitted. But even if we are, the attempt matters. On Lorath, the situation had grown increasingly desperate. Only 3 habitable zones remained on the planet's surface, protected by massive environmental domes. The population had dwindled to less than 30% of pre-crisis numbers. Elder Pren's successor, Elder Cav, had given up hope of external aid decades ago. The remaining Lorans focused on survival and maintaining the automated systems that would continue broadcasting their history and knowledge into space long after they were gone. When the communications officer detected an answer to their century-old message, many assumed it was a system malfunction. The response, originating from a planet called Earth, claimed that help was coming. "Impossible," declared Science Director Mel. "No civilization could traverse such distances." Yet the message was clear. Humans were coming. They had launched a vessel called Horizon. They would arrive in approximately 146 Earth years, roughly 125 Lorathian cycles. "Even if true, they will find nothing but ruins," Cav said bitterly. Still, something changed in the Loran collective mood. Some dared to hope again, even knowing they would never live to see these strange beings from beyond the stars. Records were updated, preservation efforts redoubled. Perhaps extinction might not be their final chapter after all. Back on the horizon, generations lived and died in service to a mission begun by their ancestors. Each crew member understood their place in the long chain of commitment stretching across light years and decades. They were humanity's answer to a desperate plea, a living embodiment of the reply. "We heard you, we're coming, hold on." The Horizon decelerated into the HD 117618 system 143 years after leaving Earth. On the command bridge, Captain Aaliyah Chen, great-great-granddaughter of the original education director, watched as the ship's sensors mapped the system. "Life signs confirmed on the 3rd planet," reported Science Officer Jonas Webb. "But they're concentrated in just a few locations. The rest of the surface shows extreme environmental degradation." "Radiation levels?" Aaliyah asked. "Higher than optimal for human exposure, but within tolerance with protection. For the Lorans, based on their biological data, it's presumably at the upper limit of survivability." Aaliyah nodded, feeling the weight of generations of preparation. Every person aboard had been raised for this moment, the culmination of humanity's longest and most ambitious humanitarian mission. Prepare the contact team, and open a communication channel using the translation protocols. When the Loran High Council received word that an unknown vessel had entered their system, disbelief quickly gave way to frantic preparation. Could it truly be the humans mentioned in historical records? Most had dismissed those ancient transmissions as false hope. "We must appear dignified," insisted Elder Trill, whose ancestor had been among those who sent the original plea. "They have crossed an impossible distance. We cannot greet them in desperation." The Lorans gathered what finery remained from their diminishing culture. Environmental Dome No. 2, the largest remaining habitable zone, was designated for the historic meeting. The human shuttle descended through Lorath's turbulent atmosphere, buffeted by fierce winds laden with radiation and dust. Through viewport windows, the contact team observed a landscape transformed by stellar evolution. Once lush continents now largely barren. Oceans reduced to acidic basins, with only the shimmering hemispheres of environmental domes indicating civilization's continued presence. Dr. Nico Reeves, xenobiology specialist, studied the sensor readings. Their population appears to be under 50,000 individuals. Based on the biological data in their original message, they once numbered in millions. We're too late for most of them, murmured diplomat Maya Inoue, descendant of one of the drive's inventors. But not for all, Captain Chen reminded them. That's what matters now. The shuttle landed on a designated platform outside the central dome. Through the airlock emerged 6 humans in protective suits, walking toward 9 waiting Lorans. The aliens stood approximately 1.5 meters tall, with slender bodies covered in smooth, pale blue skin. Their 4 eyes, arranged in horizontal pairs, blinked in alternating patterns, while tentacle-like appendages emerged from where humans would have arms, ending in 4-fingered hands. They wore elaborate metallic garments that appeared ceremonial rather than practical. Captain Chen stepped forward and enacted the greeting they had rehearsed for generations, a slow bow with open palms extended. The Loran leader, identified by ornate head coverings, responded with a complex gesture of their upper limbs, before speaking in a melodious, trilling language. The translation devices processed the sounds. I am Elder Trill of the Loran High Council. We did not truly believe you would come. I am Captain Aaliyah Chen of the Earth vessel Horizon, she replied. We received your ancestors' message. We came to help. A ripple of movement passed through the Loran delegation, a sign of emotion their human visitors didn't yet understand. Why? Asked another Loran abruptly. Why cross such a vast emptiness for strangers? The question hung in the air, fundamental and profound. Maya Inoue stepped forward. Because you asked, she said simply. And because we could try. The initial meeting lasted 3 hours, filled with cautious exchanges and cultural miscommunications. The humans discovered that Loran body language operated on entirely different principles. What they interpreted as aggression was actually intense interest, while apparent calm signaled deep distrust. As both sides retired to their respective quarters that evening, uncertainty pervaded both groups. The Lorans questioned whether these aliens truly intended to help or had ulterior motives. The humans wondered if they had arrived too late, or if cultural differences would prove insurmountable. They don't trust us, Nico observed during the team's debriefing. Would you? Maya asked. After waiting generations with dwindling hope, watching your civilization collapse around you? Captain Chen considered this. Trust will come through actions, not words. Tomorrow, we show them exactly why humanity crossed 124 light-years to reach them. Dawn broke harshly through Lorath's atmosphere, the swollen red star casting bloody light across the landscape. Inside Environmental Dome 2, humans and Lorans gathered for their second official meeting, both sides now more prepared for the cultural exchange. Captain Chen had made a critical decision overnight. She removed her protective helmet in the meeting chamber, a calculated risk based on atmospheric analysis. The gesture wasn't lost on Elder Trill, whose 4 eyes widened in sequence. You expose yourself to our environment, the Elder observed through the translator. This shows trust? It shows commitment, Chen replied. We came to help, not to observe from behind barriers. Dr. Reeves proceeded to present the preliminary evacuation plans developed over generations aboard the Horizon. Using holographic displays, he showed the habitable exoplanets identified along their journey home. We've located 3 potential worlds within 50 light-years that match your biological requirements, he explained. With the Horizon's current technology, relocation would take approximately 35 years. The Loran science director Nev trilled in distress. Impossible. Our biology cannot sustain suspended animation as yours can. And our lifespans, even without our star's degradation, rarely exceed 60 cycles. This revelation hit the human team hard. Their carefully crafted plans assumed the Lorans could enter stasis for the journey, as humans did for portions of interstellar travel. If not, the evacuation would span multiple Loran generations in active ship conditions. Something the Horizon wasn't designed to accommodate. Maya Inoue stepped forward. Then we adapt our plans. That's what humans do. Over the following weeks, human specialists immersed themselves in Loran culture, language, and biology with remarkable speed. They discovered that humans possessed a unique neurological plasticity, that allowed them to learn Loran communication methods much faster than the Lorans could adapt to human languages. Dr. Reeves made a breakthrough when analyzing Loran physiology. Their cellular regeneration is tied to specific radiation wavelengths, he explained during an emergency planning session. They evolved under this star and literally need its particular radiation signature. Which is exactly what's killing them now that the star's changing, Captain Chen realized. Precisely. But if we could replicate those wavelengths artificially, Engineer Lynn Reeves interrupted, we could convert 2 habitat rings into Loran-specific environments with customized radiation emitters. Teams worked around the clock, humans and Lorans side by side. The Horizon's manufacturing capabilities, designed for multi-generational sustainability, were repurposed to create radiation filtering systems that would allow Lorans to survive away from their dying world. When Elder Trill observed humans working 30-hour shifts to solve Loran biological challenges, often pushing their bodies to physical limits, he requested a private meeting with Captain Chen. "Your people harm themselves for our survival," he noted, gesturing to the exhausted human engineers. "We're adaptable," Chen replied. "It's perhaps our greatest strength as a species. We evolved to push boundaries, to endure hardship for delayed rewards." "This explains much," Trill responded. "We Lorans evolved for stability, for harmony with unchanging conditions. When our star began to die, we could calculate our end, but struggled to envision radical change." Technical director Maya Inoue developed a breakthrough communication system that translated not just words but contextual meanings between species. This allowed for deeper cultural exchange, revealing that Lorans possessed extraordinary mathematical abilities and pattern recognition that surpassed human capabilities. "We don't need to be identical to work together," Maya told her team. "We just need to be complementary." The humans discovered that Loran art, complex arrangements of sound and light, contained mathematical properties that improved their ship's navigation calculations. In turn, Lorans were astonished by human creativity and improvisation, qualities their species valued, but expressed differently. As mutual understanding grew, so did trust. The evacuation plans evolved into a true collaboration rather than a rescue. The Lorans weren't helpless. They simply needed what humans offered freely: adaptation, improvisation, and perhaps most importantly, hope in the face of seemingly impossible odds. Elder Trill summed it up during a council meeting. "These humans crossed the stars because we asked for help. But their greatest gift is not their technology. It is showing us how to face change without fear." 3 months into the evacuation preparations, disaster struck without warning. A massive solar flare erupted from the unstable red giant, bathing Lorath in deadly radiation that overwhelmed the environmental dome's shielding systems. Dome 3 collapsed entirely, resulting in thousands of Loran deaths. The remaining domes suffered critical damage. "Structural integrity at 28% and falling," reported Science Director Nev, as alarms blared throughout the command center. "Estimated complete failure in 9 days." The evacuation timeline, originally planned for 6 months of careful preparation, suddenly compressed to just over a week. Captain Chen immediately declared an emergency response protocol. "We need to evacuate 30,000 Lorans in 9 days, she told her senior staff. "The Horizon can't possibly accommodate that many." "It wasn't designed for this scenario," agreed Chief Engineer Reeves. "Even with our modifications, we can support perhaps 10,000 in the converted habitat rings." Elder Trill made a solemn pronouncement. "Then we must select who goes. The Council will begin identification of essential knowledge keepers and genetic diversity representatives." Maya Inoue's expression hardened. "No, we find a way to take everyone." "Impossible," stated multiple voices, both human and Loran. "Humanity crossed interstellar space because we refused to accept impossible," Maya countered. "We're not starting now." What followed was perhaps the most remarkable display of human creativity under pressure in recorded history. While Loran, councils methodically prepared selection criteria for who would survive, human engineers refused to accept the limitations. Dr. Nico Reeves led a team into the toxic atmosphere of Lorath to salvage materials from abandoned cities. Technicians worked in radiation exposure suits, breaking only when medical sensors forced mandatory recovery periods. 3 crew members suffered severe radiation poisoning, but continued working remotely from medical isolation. Captain Chen authorized the dismantling of the Horizon's third habitat ring, sacrificing living space for the human crew to create emergency Loran shelters. The ship's massive cargo bays, intended to transport resources for colony establishment, were retrofitted into dense living quarters. "We'll sleep in shifts if necessary," Chen declared when some crew members expressed concern. "This is why we came." Meanwhile, engineer Lynn Reeves made a radical proposal. Using the derelict Loran evacuation ships, the ones that had proven insufficient for their original escape plans, as auxiliary transports tethered to the Horizon. "They can't achieve interstellar travel independently," Lynn explained, "but linked to our propulsion system and life support, they could house thousands more." Working alongside Loran engineers, the humans transferred their more efficient life support technology to the aging Loran vessels. The integration of disparate systems required constant improvisation, as components never designed to work together were forced into compatibility. As Dome 2 began experiencing cascading failures, evacuation commenced under emergency conditions. Round-the-clock shuttle operations transferred Lorans to orbit, while engineering teams raced to complete the modifications. A catastrophic power fluctuation in Dome 1 pushed forward the final evacuation deadline by 36 hours. Captain Chen personally piloted the last shuttle from the surface, as the dome's shield generators failed behind them. Through viewport windows, they watched the final Loran city dissolve under the onslaught of radiation and atmospheric degradation. With hours remaining before departure, a critical power coupling failed in the jury-rig system connecting the Loran vessels to the Horizon's life support. Without it, thousands would die within days. In Engineering Bay 4, Maya Inoue and 3 Loran technicians tackled the impossible integration problem. The human and alien minds approached the challenge from fundamentally different perspectives, where humans sought creative workarounds. Lorans identified precise mathematical harmonics between systems. "It's like composing music with 2 different instruments," Maya observed during their 20th consecutive hour of work. "Perhaps that is exactly what we must do," replied the Loran engineer Pell. "Not force compatibility, but create harmony." Their solution, a hybrid of human improvisation and Loran precision, came with just hours to spare. The power systems synchronized, allowing life support to flow into all vessels. As the massive linked fleet prepared for departure, Captain Chen stood on the Horizon's observation deck with Elder Trill, watching the bloated red star that had nearly destroyed the Loran civilization. "Not a single Loran left behind," Chen said quietly. "You achieved the impossible," Trill responded. "No," Chen corrected. "We achieved it together." Behind them, 30,000 Loran refugees and 500 humans prepared to leave the HD 117618 system. An exodus born of desperation transformed into triumph through cooperation. 34 years later, the Horizon approached the binary star system designated KL-42, its massive form now accompanied by a flotilla of refurbished Loran vessels. The journey had been arduous, with resources stretched beyond planned parameters to support a population nearly 7 times what the ship had been designed to carry. Captain Maya Inoue, who had assumed command after Aaliyah Chen's passing, stood on the observation deck beside Elder Meek, grandson of Elder Trill. Both leaders had grown into their roles during the decades-long journey. "Preliminary scans confirm what our probes reported," Maya said, studying the holographic display. "The 4th planet meets all Loran biological requirements. The radiation signature from the smaller star is remarkably similar to your ancestral sun's original state." "Before it began dying," Mick noted. His 4 eyes blinked in the pattern that humans had learned meant contemplative gratitude. "We're calling it New Lorath, unless your people prefer another name. New Lorath honors our history while acknowledging our future. It is appropriate." The landing operations spanned 2 months as 30,000 Lorans, now increased to 33,000 with births during transit, established their new civilization on a pristine world. Human engineering teams helped construct the first settlements, installing environmental monitoring systems and agricultural infrastructure. Dr. Nico Reeves, now elderly but still active as chief xenobiologist, worked with Loran scientists to ensure the planet's native microfauna wouldn't threaten the settlers. Humans had learned painful lessons about ecosystem integration during their own colonial history, lessons they now shared freely. "What will you do now?" Elder Mick asked Maya. during the official founding ceremony for Capital City. Your mission is complete. Will you return to Earth? Maya watched human and Loran children playing together near the ceremonial grounds. The youngest humans having never known Earth. The youngest Lorans never having seen Lorath. Some will stay as cultural liaisons, if you'll have them, she answered. Others will continue onward. The horizon was built to explore, after all. To answer calls for help, Meek corrected gently. Perhaps that's the same thing. During the farewell banquet 3 weeks later, Elder Mick presented Captain Inoue with a crystalline sculpture, a Loran artistic medium that encoded mathematical formulas expressing relationships between celestial bodies. This represents the distance between Old Lorath and New Lorath, the Elder explained, but also the distance between who we were and who we have become through knowing humanity. Mick activated the crystal, which projected a haunting harmonic tone, accompanied by geometric light patterns. Our historians have studied your species extensively during our journey together. We found many civilizations across the galaxy might have received our ancestors' message. Some might have possessed even greater technology than yours. Yet you alone answered. Maya shook her head. We can't know that for certain. We analyzed the probability extensively, Mick insisted. The mathematical likelihood of a species developing both the capability and the inclination to help strangers across such distances is vanishingly small. It requires a unique evolutionary path, one that balances technological advancement with altruistic expansion of moral concern. The crystal's projection shifted, now showing the trajectory of the original Loran message and the horizon's responding journey. Lines of light stretching across a miniature galaxy. Most advanced civilizations would calculate, as our ancestors did, that the resource expenditure outweighed the potential benefit of saving strangers. Mick continued. Humanity's decision defied rational self-interest. This quality makes you unique among intelligent species we hypothesized might exist. Later that evening, as the Horizon prepared for departure with its reduced crew, engineer Lynn Reeves joined Maya on the observation deck. Below them, the lights of New Lorath's capital city twinkled against the darkness, a constellation of hope born from cooperation. Was it worth it? Lynn asked softly. 5 generations of humans dedicated to saving a species we never knew existed, until they called for help. Maya considered the question. During their journey, Earth had continued its own history. Political systems had evolved. Cultures had transformed. The crew of the Horizon were now strangers to their ancestral home, separated by time and experience. Look down there, she finally answered. A civilization that would have been extinguished continues. And humanity has gained not just allies, but friends among the stars. How could that not be worth everything? As the Horizon broke orbit 3 days later, a message arrived from the surface, a simple transmission in perfect English. You came when we called. We will answer if you ever need us. The ship accelerated toward deep space, its mission complete, yet somehow just beginning. Humanity had proven itself not through conquest or technological superiority, but through the simple, profound act of helping strangers across the gulf of stars. In the centuries that followed, when other civilizations encountered humanity, they often heard the story of the Lorans first, how a species sent a desperate plea into the darkness, never truly expecting an answer, and how humans had crossed the impossible distance simply because they were asked. It became known throughout explored space that if you sent a call for help into the darkness, humans would answer, not because it served their interests, but because they could not imagine doing otherwise. The end.